There are moments in life you don't recognize while they're happening. A decision you almost didn't make, a conversation that lingered longer than it should have, a loss you didn't see coming, or a quiet realization that nothing will be the same after today. And somehow, that's where the story begins. Welcome to the Mani Gill Podcast, the podcast where we shared lived experiences that shape us. Not the highlight reel, but the in-between, the uncertainty. The turning points you only understand in hindsight. Each episode, we sit down with real people and unpack the moments that changed their direction. What happened, what it felt like, and who they became because of it. Because your life isn't just a story you tell, it's an experience you're still living through. My name is Mani Gill, and I'm so grateful that you are here. I'm all about creating a community where we shared lived experiences, especially the difficult, defining, or unexpected ones, which become turning points for growth, identity, and direction. Thank you for being here. I hope you subscribe, rate, and review. It would mean so much to me. So our guest for today is Julie Archambault. Hello, welcome, Julie.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
Really good.
Really good?
Yeah, I just rolled in and there was already a meditation happening and I just sort of enjoyed.
That's
It was like a
beautiful.
gift to come into and sort of just enjoyed it. And I love the beautiful space here. So
That's nice.
enjoying it, yes.
Welcome. And I remember the time when we started talking about you coming in. It just felt like it just naturally flowed. I'm so happy to have you here today.
thank you.
So Julie is a holistic teacher, a passionate storyteller, and a psychosomatic practitioner, a relationship, empowerment, and innovation coach. Julie is the author of Sex Up Your Life, and I do have a copy of it just to show you. And also the founder of Co-Creative Soma, a wellness business committed to fulfilling lives and attuned sex and intimacy, as well as getting to the root of chronic conditions plaguing our lives, especially when someone has tried everything. She supports transforming chronic conditions in the body, in the biology, and in life that show up everywhere, even in the bedroom. She helps the body and biology reorganize for a deepened life, more attuned well-being, and expanded consciousness. Most people have experienced times in their life where the biology lacked the support it needed, which resulted in chronic conditions. Using her psychosomatic background, Julie helps people find the pattern and allow the biology to reorganize more optimally. This comes from both pursuing and unwinding her own chronic conditions and from her lifetime of work holding space for people to feel, express, release, and remember. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
So to get started, can you take us back to a moment or decision that first set you on this path of becoming a coach and writing your book, Sex Up Your Life?
Yes. I was actually in a completely different city, Montreal, and had been a teacher, holistic teacher, but more in the realm of with children, and just devoting my life to all these things with this big ideal of like trying to do the best I could. And it was so demanding on me that I remember that it was really hard to have a life, outside of work. And I'd be so exhausted at the end of the day. And I would try to do everything, like go dance tango and go dance all these different things. But then I would go and then start dancing with people and almost like fall asleep on their shoulder because tango was so lingering music.
Right.
But I was really feeling like I needed this balance. I was feeling this lack of connection in my personal life. And I remember one day coming home in my car and then just like having this almost like thunderbolt moment where I was like, stop the car. Like, Julie, like you need to find a life coach or like something. And it was really funny because I was not at all in that kind of environment.
Okay.
I wasn't at all in an environment where people talking about life coaches. It was like, yes, it was an environment where we're trying to do something holistic for the children, but in many respects, it wasn't necessarily, that kind of personal development in your personal life. It was more like focused on what you're doing in the classrooms, right?
Okay.
So then I was like really, I also knew that in my body, I was holding some really just like numbness or patterns that were just making it really hard for me to have the life I wanted.
Right.
And so when I started working with this coach, she was like, okay, well, and just so you know, like I actually had already been married when I was in my early 20s, but saw that that wasn't going to work with what everything was going on. And so I found myself again in this kind of long period of being single. So she's like, okay, well, you're going to have to go online and I'll coach you while you're actually out there doing things, right? Reaching out. But in the process, she received this little advertisement from a colleague of hers that was going to be doing this whole course on sex and intimacy. And it's actually someone we both know, Baljeet.
Okay.
And
lovely.
So I was like, something in me went like, oh, beep, 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 like, you got to do this, So I looked into it, but then I thought, no, I don't want to do this as a group. I need her to work on me. Like I knew there was all these like things, all these almost like, mysteries in my body that I wanted to work through. And so that was kind of the beginning of getting back in touch with this theme around sexuality. And we did a lot of different things. She kept on blowing my mind with like things that, only myself would know, and dynamics that I was dealing with in my family. And so slowly but surely, I was finding my way. And she sent me this book by mail. I was in Montreal. She was in Vancouver at the time. And it was Aphrodite's Daughters. And it's this whole book that takes these different archetypes of, I guess, sexual experiences and puts them like the real stories and kind of talks about them. And I was like, when I received that, I just opened the book and devoured that book from the beginning to the end. And the next session I had with her, she's like, I knew you were a goddess. I knew it.
So beautiful. Yeah.
And so then I was, I was finishing my whole work with the students, and I wanted to, I was sort of like, you do an 8-year cycle and then you have a sabbatical. And I was like, I want to give myself the gift of going to London and doing this course, like for myself, like writing this course. It was in the London School of Journalism, and I took this course on making short stories. And every time I would write, I'd always start talking about sex, all the different dynamics around sex. Everything was, I was just like, I just couldn't get rid of that theme. It was kept coming back.
Right.
And then that's when like this idea of like writing the book sort of birthed in, And I remember Baljeet sort of like supporting me, like, okay, well, maybe you should talk to that woman. And so like I thought it was like, like something that was going to be so easy, and I was going to go and interview this woman, and this exotic dancer now become feng shui like woman consultant. And then so I called her up, and then she's like, why would I tell you my story? And do you have a blog? And I remember like being challenged and then hanging up the phone and then be like, oh my God, I'm going to have to write a blog. And I was like, holy. And I remember thinking like this sinking feeling of like adrenaline going through my whole body. And I had to go around the park 3 times just to like get this energy out. And I was like, oh my God, because in a way, the environment I had been in was a bit conservative around these things. You don't just like talk about sex. And you don't, it was like, yes, it's important, but it's like, it's very like, it's almost like a very fuzzy, comfortable thing. But I was like wanting to go into like the deeper questions, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a blog. And then I remember writing my first article, and it was about sexual numbness. And I was like, it just felt like, holy crap, this feels so revealing. And like, I felt so exposed and raw. And I remember at the time it was WordPress, right? When
Right.
WordPress was popular. So I remember pressing on like submit, and I literally like hid under my covers. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. And it was going to like my, at the time it was Facebook and social media, so I put it out there. And then slowly but surely, like even, people from the school or from like people that were on the same Facebook as me or parents or like colleagues were like, hey, I really liked your article. That was really good.
That's awesome.
So it just started like coming back. And then I was like, okay, well, how am I going to sustain this theme over long periods of time? And so I came up with this concept of like sex on the continuum, and at first I'd called it 50 Shades of, I think it was sex or something like that, right? And then I started with like completely disconnected sex all the way up to like very connected sex. And it was just going to be doing this blog to give me like a direction, and a theme that I could follow and like explore, right? Yeah. And then on the other hand, I was still interviewing people and working on this big book that I thought was going to be more of a fiction at first.
Okay.
But then I was like challenged by other coaches that were like, Julie, if you want to make an impact, you have to write a real nonfiction book, not just fiction. And I was starting to understand why too, because like nonfiction, you can go a little straighter to the point with what you're trying to say. Fiction, you have to create a style, a world, and it's it's like a little more artistic. So you
have to create a world within a world.
Exactly. So I remember like writing, like I had interviewed all these people, but this one person's story could be one book. I was like, I had written, and another person I interviewed was like one book.
Yeah.
But I needed these little snippets,
right.
to like anyway. So that's how the birth of this book came into work. And then as I was working and developing and growing myself, I started taking, different trainings myself and wanting, like I did a whole Tibetan Tantra class. And then I did this, then I did actually the Akashic Record training, 3 levels to hold space for people. And it just kept on expanding all the way up to today with the de-armoring and the somatic, psychosomatic, the field work, just constantly just refining the container. So and that's one thread anyways.
So when you wrote your first blog, was there a lot of fear around writing it?
I was terrified.
Or was there a lot of fear about what you would hear back from people? Which one was it more of?
Both, because on one hand, it was like talking about things I was dealing with that maybe I was only fully putting a name on, and it was already really uncomfortable just to admit it.
Right.
That I was experiencing something like this. And then the other part was like just talking about sex in the public sphere. Like way back, it was just not at all in the field that I was around. And in fact, I remember that, but I was interested. It's always something I've been interested. So when I was in this, my students were in grade 8, I believe, and I did Les Misérables, Les Mis as a play.
Okay.
And I was very excited about doing the prostitution scene, like the ladies of the night.
Okay.
And having these masks, and like when they had to say that they were already dead or something, and they had their masks go up, I was very like into it. But it actually, some of the parents, or at least one parent, complained, and I was like told, oh, you shouldn't have done that scene. And I was like, but this is like the oldest archetype that lives on the planet. We can talk about it. And I was just like, I could really feel this offended part of my being. I was like, there's just something that feels like we need to talk about things. Like it's just so hidden.
And it's still, I think, a taboo to a lot of people. It's just a conversation or a topic where people are just like, let's not go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. And here you were like, let's go there. Let's open the whole door. Forget the window.
And it's so funny because I'm like, I go all in, but at the same time, I'm also completely terrified myself. I'm like, yes, but what am I going to see? What am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? Because I think I intuited too that even writing this book, interviewing people, exploring all these different dynamics would also be supportive of just me, because I think we kind of accumulate from our culture, from our family lineage, from experiences in our life, from just mindsets in the world.
Even society, the way it's taught.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's a big one for a lot of people. I think the way society teaches us, that's pretty much most of what people know.
Yeah. Even the concept of pleasure is not something that you talk to children about.
No.
It's still very much like, there might be different kinds of, now there's like, there's LGBTQ plus, whatever, like they'll talk about all kinds of identities, but they'll never talk about the intimacy or the experience of it or the bodily, what happens in the body and the sacredness of all these experiences. And, so there's a lot, it's almost like stripped of its depth. And I remember looking in magazines, like let's say at the grocery store, and you're like, how do you get the major orgasm? And then your next magazine is like, and then the 10 people that came out to denounce so and so about, raping them or whatever, like or misconduct, and you're just like whoa, like there's this disconnect between this, and how do we kind of like create this bigger picture where everything somehow starts making sense? It's not just these disconnected experiences, we're experiencing this bigger thing. And so I was aware of that by going in, like I would also be deprogramming myself, or at least kind of like touching parts of myself that felt more sensitive, or, and at the bottom of it, there's like a lot of, it's just a very tender thing. So how do you, like, it was just, why is it so charged, So it's just a very interesting thing to enter.
I think and personally, just from my personal experience, I'd say I think it's a lot of projection from society onto what you should be thinking and feeling instead of your own personal body telling you what you should be feeling and thinking. So there's like a big line between those two worlds because they're very different. And I think they could be opposite.
Yes.
They could be complete opposites, and yet you would not know because society is teaching you something completely different.
Yeah.
And when you start asking those questions, there's not a lot of avenues where you get the answers. I mean, yes, today there are, but back in the day, there were not.
Yeah.
Because one, it was a conversation people would not want to have. And then there was not Google. There was not there wasn't all of that. So there was books. But again,
if it's not in your environment, it's not in your environment.
Exactly, right? So I give you all the credit for, going into a space where it's like hush hush, where it's like taboo.
Yeah.
Even today, there's, I think, for a lot of people, but to be able to do that and find yourself along the way.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, like you say, there's so many ideals or like images of what we think it should look like.
Yes. Yeah.
And, or, like there's porn, there's like the romance about sex, there's all these different ideas of having a family or, whatever. There's so many different things. The erotic, or even at the time, like, the whole scene with kink and everything like that. Like those are a whole other worlds too, right? But it's like, I love what you just said about how it is a journey to start feeling from the inside what is there for you for real and what feels good, what doesn't feel good. Is it just to follow what someone's asking of you? Are you in it together? Are you feeling safe together emotionally, physically, spiritually? Is it just like a bing, bang, bong, like, and then boom, it's done? It's just so many things, right?
Yeah. And I think it's also the realization that no matter how much you learn from the outer world, what your body is telling you is the most accurate for you personally, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? And a lot of people don't know that. We tend to, again, go numb it. We're like, okay, this is something out of my, my area. I'm going to numb it. I don't want to go into that area because I don't know what's going to come out of it.
Absolutely. And that's something you really see a lot in the psychosomatic work, is even in terms of emotions, like people don't realize what they're carrying when they come into a session.
Yes.
And then it's like dropping in and feeling and starting to notice sensations, and it's just that everything starts revealing itself. And so I'd say in general in society, I think there is a big disconnect between actually really being connected to what's happening in the felt sense, because we're very cerebral, or very disconnected as we're moving from one job to the next, or having crazy schedules, and we're just a little frantic. So we're not going into that place of actual connecting, which I think is changing with, people doing all kinds of yoga or meditation, all these things. People are more and more aware, but
and being more aligned with their body, because
That's
those
right.
things are letting you know, hey, my body's speaking to me. What is it trying to tell me? Because a lot of times we don't know.
Yeah, it's like learning a new language, right?
And little off topic is when you have, let's say, a mental illness, like you're depressed, or you don't know you have those symptoms.
That's right.
But you don't know what they are. What is this? Right?
You're just feeling off or not good.
I personally had depression at one point. So when it was happening, I actually didn't know what was going on. I just knew this is what I'm feeling. Right? It's only later on that you start to realize, oh, those were my symptoms. This is what it is. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what you're talking about is you may have those symptoms, your body's telling you, your biology is telling you, but you don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so like being in that aquarium, right? And not knowing you're in the aquarium, and you have to figure out that you're in the aquarium.
Yes.
It's like, it's not obvious at first, right?
Yes, exactly.
Very convincing.
So while writing your book, tell us about the experiences you had with the people you spoke to, and how did that change your point of view on things that you previously felt or understood, and then it later changed because of the conversations you've had along the way.
Yeah.
How did that change you? I mean, I know it was definitely beautiful stories about what it is, what sex is, positively, negatively, how it impacts you. But how did that impact you talking to these people?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting because I first started with two pretty out there kind of sex educators, whether it was through Tantra or like masculine self-mastery. And I just was so curious. So I was just asking what they're like, just trying to understand their dynamics in their life. And I've always had that kind of like, excavating for like understanding patterns. And, but I interviewed, and they loved actually talking to me too, because they were discovering things as they were talking to me and making associations to their childhood or to different things in their life. Because my goal was really to go deep with people and to like really explore not just the superficial, like, wow, I can do this, but no, what is it excavating? What is underneath? What is living there? Where do these patterns come from? How is it showing up in my life? What's been like really difficult? And so, it took an edge for me to it was like people that were not all in my kind of world. Like I say, it was like I was really stretching out. And then slowly as I was exposed to the world, it just opened up and opened me to all these different possibilities and navigating different spaces. And then since the book is designed over, people throughout this whole spectrum of completely disconnected to really connected, I really need to have people who've experienced things on all these different places, right?
Yeah.
To be able to illustrate it. So there was this kind of, it was almost like a magic that it almost felt like I was co-creating with the universe, because people would just show up into my life and I would like hear their story. Like, for instance, I'll give you one example. I actually had started interviewing a woman that on the theme of being, a sex worker.
Okay.
And then we were going into things that were just so intimate and so difficult for her, and that were still not fully processed. And at one point she said, I can't continue anymore. And then I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then I was at this women's event, and there was this beautiful, like, bold businesswoman that was, very much of an influencer out there in the, before 2020 kind of thing. And I just went, I was like presenting, all the work around that I was doing, this continuum I'd created. I was talking about sexuality, and it was kind of in this very formal environment where there was, this kind of estate, kind of beautiful home, like, kind of like that British style big home kind of, space, and it was kind of a university club kind of thing.
Okay.
And then at the end, this woman came and she said, I really appreciate what you talked about, because I'm on this continuum. And I've had this
Oh.
experience of sex work. And then, so that was the woman I started interviewing. We agreed that she would get interviewed. And we just went so deep, and it was so magical. And like her story was so deep and sometimes difficult. And she'd really transformed her life,
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very fascinating. And then there was things like, for instance, some people have these, I really discovered for some people, like sex work can be a very difficult thing, but then some people have found a way to make it like this really positive experience and allow people to grow and to expand their sexuality and, connect themselves more. And so before that, it was always like, well, no, prostitution, there's a victim quality to that. But I was discovering, no, there's a very empowered community of people that are pursuing this because they have this gift that want to share. And, and it might be for a period of their life. It might be for the whole thing. But right in that moment, they make this empowered decision. That's what they want to be doing. So it was very interesting to start understanding the nuances. And then, it just kept on unfolding like that, like, just meeting people like, oh, wow, your story's so interesting. And can I interview you more? And that's how it kind of evolved.
I loved how you said that you were at a point where you were wondering, okay, how am I going to finish this interview? And the universe has its way of introducing you to someone to fill that gap of what you're feeling at that time. And personally, for me, I was going through something as well. And then Baljit introduced me to you.
Right.
And then I read your book, and I'm guilty. I read it in one go as well. I could not stop reading it. It was so good. But again, it is your environment. If that conversation is not openly had, then you find other ways of figuring out what you're feeling, right?
That's right.
Or you just find a way to numb it.
That's right.
Those are the only two ways you can understand that, right? I just, again, put it out in the universe. Hey, help me connect to somebody who can help me to get the answers.
That's right.
Or show me the way to find the answers myself, right? And that's why I said, so when you were interviewing these people, you were also feeling that energy, be it the negative turned into the positive, or just the negative who are stuck in that, not able to come out of it, right? But it's such a strong energy, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I asked you, how did that help you in your own personal journey?
Yeah.
Right? How was those conversations? What were they giving you answers for your own personal questions?
Well, I feel
I know they were helping you with your book.
But it felt like everybody in this book in some ways was a reflection of me in some way.
Yeah.
Not maybe literally, but maybe some of the dynamics I was dealing with.
Yeah.
So being able to write about them and discover them and get to the patterns of them, it just felt like it was a very liberating process. Yeah. And then seeing people that, like you say, had come out the other side and really empowered themselves. It was, I just felt, there's such a different dynamics that we're dealing with. And there are so many different levels, like, like the chapter on, let's say, sexual vampirism, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you can be completely innocently in something and you don't realize you're just like, it's that vampire energy and you're just drained. You're just sort of like leaking your energy and like learning to identify that and be able to.
Because I think that's when we're the most vulnerable.
That's right.
And along with that, that's a good question, because now I have another one. Is they say sexual energy is creative energy.
That's right.
Right? I've heard that term a lot. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, it's almost like one of these statements like, what does that mean? It's kind of ambiguous, right?
When I think a person hears it, it does feel empowering.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if you even just go to the basics of it, right? Like that there's this life force going through our body that, is creative energy.
Yeah.
When we're connected to creative energy, like we are more vibrant, we are more alive, we have more ideas, we connect to more people. But when we're kind of dulled and like are, feeling everything's lagging, there's another kind of like energy that gets, like transmitted. But if you look at even, that's how child is born, out of this sexual encounter, right? So there's an actual body that gets created out of this union. But, Jung and all these different, Freud or, different people that have come up with ideas around libido or whatever, they all talk about it as this creative life force that's like, a pulse of life.
Yeah.
That's like driving people. So they have different variances of how they talk about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you look at like Eastern traditions, like yogic traditions or Chinese traditional medicine, like you'll have like the qi, or you'll have, the prana, and like there's all these different things that are moving through. And so sexual energy can be used just for your creativity, but it can also be used to express something that's very alive in you. And that sexual encounter is an aliveness that's meeting another aliveness, and it brings in that, there's chemicals and hormones and all kinds of things that come into the mix. But at the end of the day, it's a vitalizing process if you go in it in the way that is supported and healthy. People will feel, revitalized, and their whole body's going to open. They'll experience transcendent states or openings or high frequency experiences, or just like a peak, Yeah. So these are all very just high experiences, right? Okay. But so the life, that creative life force, it's this pulse that wants to create, that wants to become, that wants to enliven. It's the driving force.
That's beautiful, right? As you know, there's a lot of social media nowadays. There's a lot of this conversation around sex, but I think it's still very surface level conversations. The deeper ones are still not being had. Mm-hmm. So when I read that on a post that sexual energy is creative energy, and that when you are aligned with it, you can do beautiful things. But it never talks about what happens if you're misaligned with it.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Does that mean you're on the darker side of your life force?
Well, it's interesting because that's what kind of, the book was being developed, like that's something that
I think that if you have a sexual trauma or some sort of abuse, definitely you're on the darker side, because you're not really living through that energy.
That's right.
It's either blocked or it's just not being utilized. Mm-hmm. And so does that impact a person negatively in their other areas of their life?
Well, I think like when you are activating your sexual energy, it's like you're almost like at a higher level of vulnerability too, right?
Right.
So you're kind of opening yourself. Your whole being is more open. The energy is amplified.
Right.
And so when things are aligned and you're feeling supported, it can be a process of growth and even awakening your consciousness and awareness, and allow you to have this vital force, like almost like move through you and expand you, right?
Yeah.
But when it's not aligned, when there is abuse involved or disconnect or unconsciousness or taking advantage, I think we're also very, very vulnerable too. So what happens is there's something that fragments in our being, because we're like, we don't always know exactly what's going on.
Right.
But after we don't feel good, we feel like emptied out, or like, wow, that person just took advantage of me and like I'm stuck here alone, or like I know a lot of people today are talking about how hard it is on the dating scene, and some people are I'm just giving up, or not even having sex because it gets like complicated sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But if you even go to things that like when a child's been sexually abused, like it's their whole life force is kind of, how can I say, like there's distortions that are put in there, and then they have to it can take a lifetime to sort through getting things back into balance, because it's like there's just something that was breached. And not that means that there's all these people that love talking about this online too, about like being broken, and we're not broken. It's not that, but for me, it's not even that. It's when we're healing, There's something that is hurt. And a wound, when it's cut, it's healed, but it's self-healing. Yes, it is self-healing. Yeah. So for me, talking about healing things is not a problem,
Yeah.
But there is a remembering of like who we are fully, so that our bodies can get back into that alignment and get back into, not coming from feeling like that unconscious activation, or in your sympathetic nervous system's like activated, or armoring or protecting yourself because some part of you knows like this is not good, and oh, that was bad, or like I didn't feel good with this, and then you're worried about the next experiences, right? So it can take something to let people come back in when someone did something to you, right?
Right, definitely. So since we are on this topic, I would say that even today, and I know even in my culture, this is still a taboo topic. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. What would you say? Do you think that's changing? Or do you think there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of opening that avenue?
Well, I think just from like psychosomatic work that I'm doing, that it's not even about sex.
Yeah.
I'm saying, wow, people are so disconnected in general.
Okay.
Just even feeling their emotions.
So they're numbing those emotions?
They just probably have never gone to a place where they feel fully
connected,
safe, or to just be, drop in to feel like they just probably never learned it, or it was never modeled and, in their environment, but I think, in general, I think we're learning, it's almost like this new skill that we're learning. So for me, sex is a very deep somatic experience. And so if you're disconnected, like your sexuality is going to be disconnected too, right?
Definitely.
It just goes together. So it's like the more that and I feel like, yes, I do feel around me, people are growing in consciousness, they're growing in awareness, they're more and more connected. Even the younger people coming in with already more understanding faster than us, and we were faster than whoever before us, right?
Yes, yeah.
If you go back to the 60s with the whole sexual revolution, there's maybe a lot of explosive, trying all kinds of things, but I'm sure there's a lot of hurt people too.
Yeah.
That tried new things, but also it left scars or whatever. So it's like there's a whole period of refining. It doesn't mean it was wrong. It's just like we're in this period where we're learning and refining. And then even in the whole Tantra scene, there was, people trying things, but then people calling each other out, like, oh, you're using your power to do this and blah, 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 blah. And so there's a sorting out, and of the shadow around sexuality and becoming more and more conscious of. And that's why I really always really loved The Wheel of Consent, Betty Martin's work.
Okay.
Where she really gets us to look at the different elements of the quadrant, but like different perspectives, like when I'm giving, when I'm taking, when I'm receiving, when I'm being, or when I'm taking to enjoy, it's like there's different qualities, and getting like to start knowing or have an embodied experience of these things is a full education.
Yeah, definitely. So when we are, let's say, abused or traumatized, our energy is vulnerable, right? And when we get to a point where we're ready for relationships, and this is personal experience too, watching people going through it, they tend to attract people who are also, traumatized or not balanced in their energy source, or are taking more than giving, right? So is it true that we attract people through our trauma or our abuse if we're sitting in that energy?
Well, I think this is one of these most fascinating things that occurs. What is the explanation for it? It's hard to explain, but we definitely either we choose unconsciously or the field brings it to us, however we explain it. But there is a definite matchmaking that happens between people that need to heal something. Any relationship, or sometimes people are there just to ignite something to make you remember, oh my God, I have to go and do this work, But I do believe pretty, if you're on a path of consciousness, even if you're not on a path of consciousness and want to avoid everything, at one point, things are going to burst in your face. And until you see what you have to learn,
And those personal relationships are the way to say, hey, I can't avoid this anymore. They're like that mirror.
That's right.
Showing you.
Because it could look at the beginning, it might feel like, oh, it's like lune de miel, the honeymoon.
Yeah.
And so everything feels good. But slowly but surely, what happens, like our dynamics come out and they play out. And And it like there's this dance that needs to happen. And can this dynamic be transformed?
Yeah.
It's like, what do I have to learn? What do I need to integrate? What do I need to release? What do I need to remember about myself? To not be in this dynamic.
That is really powerful, right? Personally, I think most people choose to numb it or choose to just say, what's done is done. Let's move on. But I think that subconsciously, if your body and your mind are not in sync, it will show up in some form.
Well, that's the thing. I think it really depends on I think there's a bigger intelligence at work, and whatever we need to learn it's going to become clear. Is it learning to speak up for yourself? Is it having a boundary? Is it using your voice that maybe you froze as a child and was never able to then in all your relationships to have boundaries, proper boundaries, or you overprotected yourself because you didn't know how to have the boundaries, so you might as well protect yourself because you don't know how to manage that dynamic. Or, maybe it's like learning to receive instead of being the one that's trying to be the caregiver and give everything. And so there's so many balancing of dynamics. It's almost like, I almost feel like there's an energetic imprint that attracts another energetic imprint. And there's a dance that needs to happen. And then they can both grow together, or one is like, okay, I see it. And then the person, if they don't want to follow and grow, or maybe it's just that was what the relationship was about, it's just going to keep on evolving with what that person needs to, how that person needs to expand, right?
Expand, right? Yeah. So would you say there is a high rate of sexual trauma today that is coming out? Because I knew it was always there. It was just all hush hush. Would you say people are more open to speaking about it? And again, would you say that they're more open to speaking about it with one-to-one, or are people more open to speaking about it in a group?
Well, you even look at there was a time when even someone being, let's say, abused in the music industry or as a model, you couldn't even talk about it. No one believed you. You're gaslit. You might have lost your job. And now we're in this era where Epstein's documents are being thrown out on the internet.
Yes.
So we're in a very different era.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's easy for people to talk about things. And I still know people that have been abused as children and are adults dealing with all kinds of symptoms, probably like numbing in all kinds of different ways. We even see on East Hastings, there's probably a lot of people who've experienced sexual abuse that have never been able to deal with it, know? But, I think a lot of people are sorting out sexuality. I think it's not an easy thing to find. It's such a vulnerable thing. So people are awkward. People get hurt. And people see things from different perspectives.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing is they just feel like if I talk about it, I'll be judged.
That's right.
People will say, hey, it was your fault.
That's right. And it's also sad to see how, yes, there's that whole thing of people coming out and talking about things, but it's also becomes, it's just, it's done in such compromising ways. It takes so much to talk about it. And then it's either they're dismissed or made to be ridiculous, or the other person is made completely wrong. And then, it's not safe to work through our issues without making it into a scandal, right?
Yeah.
So it's how do we talk about things? How do we transform? How do we take ownership? There's people who are still walking around the streets having harmed people, probably finding their ways of surviving with themselves, know? And then there's all these people that have gone through things, So I think it's just a very sensitive topic. So yeah, I think you could put alcohol into the mix. All kinds of things happen when you're just a little less conscious.
Oh, addictions. Okay.
Or not even addictions. Let's say you go to the bar and drink and then you end up sleeping with someone, but or they or you weren't really consenting, but it happened, or, it's there's a lot of different things that come into the play.
Okay.
And so I do think that there's a lot of people probably I don't know if all these stories coming out are going to change how things are, but probably I can just, but I it's almost like there was so much more immunity before because people were so scared. It's like the shame is kind of being washed off a little bit. Like it's like, okay, it's easier maybe to talk about it today because there's so much has been already exposed.
Yes.
So who knows, right?
Yeah.
Like how this all works out. And then sometimes there's people that take advantage of that too. There's like, it's just, it's a complex world out there.
It is. I totally agree. So if my listeners would want to know, how would you start baby steps in discovering this or looking for an outlet? Where do they go?
Yeah.
What would you recommend would be like baby steps where they can start actually understanding what they're feeling or what they're,
Yeah.
It's because it's a pattern and it keeps going inside of you again and again.
Yeah.
So how would you recommend my listeners to be able to start those steps to get to where they want? Because everybody is different.
That's right.
Right? Some people's journeys will be smaller than others.
Mm-hmm.
Some people's will have extensive, learning to do along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you recommend?
Well, sometimes, when you've experienced something that's really difficult, there is something nice to have someone that knows how to hold a container and you can just talk about it, right?
Yes, yeah.
Or even just start hinting towards it, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's a thawing out of this memory in the body, right? A kind of accessing, but, depends where they are at. Maybe it is reading a book first and just starting to get comfortable with certain ideas. Maybe it is being curious about different things. Maybe it is talking to a friend. But I do think, like, even, like when I was dealing with things around sexuality, I definitely appreciated having someone hold a container for me.
Yeah.
Because then you feel like, whoa, because there's something about someone holding you and saying something that is so difficult to say, right?
Yeah.
And then having that person be able to hear it.
Yes.
And then even like when we did the co-creative incubator, which was kind of following the book, the design of it was that each chapter we'd read something and then have an opportunity to create poetry or whatever around it, but then have a little space to talk about things, because sometimes it is the first thing is to realize like, oh, other people are talking about this. Oh, I'm not the only one. I was actually just connecting with this woman from a First Nations community, and she talked about how they created this huge like timeline and they could all go write Post-its and then everyone got their stories read. And there's just something about hearing everyone's story. And then you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, this is so much more common than I thought. Or, yes, you have the same experience as me. Or, wow, I totally get that. Or, so it's kind of getting to a place where things can start feeling more easeful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you did bring up co-creative Sama. Could you please tell a little bit more about that to my listeners?
Like co-creative, my company, or the co-creative incubator?
The incubator that you have.
Yeah.
And then your company as well. A little bit more about, I thought they were one of the same. But
it's just that, so initially my company was called Co-Creative Sex. And then I since I'm expanding it with more somatic work, I kind of renamed it. It's not just about sexuality now because I feel like everything is so connected.
Yes.
So, we all come to the same theme. Sexuality usually is just an amplifier, everything else going on, right?
Yeah.
But the co-creative incubator was part of co-creative sex in the sense that it was an online group program, and we went through these different themes related to each chapter, and then we worked on the theme. So it was a space of intimate exchange and writing, one's personal intimate feelings into little poetry or things like that, where then there's a whole medicine in just being able to share something verbally with a group and being witnessed or witnessing someone else. So there's something beautiful that does happen out of a group.
So the incubator is done in a group setting.
Yeah, the incubator is done in a group.
Okay.
And then psychosomatic work one-on-one is is a place where you can start exploring the sensations in your body and just see what's emerging, where those patterns are coming from. And oftentimes, like you said in my intro, people who've been through difficult things over long periods of time, it's like their biology wasn't supported for such long periods of time that then even at the, biological level, or of the how can I say, it's like your body starts adapting to these things and eventually can get out of a dysregulation and start creating chronic conditions, right?
Because you're living in survival mode.
That's right.
So your body is doing everything for you to automatically live in that mode.
Exactly.
Right.
So a session would go in and be trying to kind of get, help, not necessarily find the root, but more like help the person process whatever's there. So it's this dynamic process where the body is metabolizing all the time, but can also get stuck into these unfinished cycles of different fears or different difficult experiences, or even not being able to use your voice. I think that creates a whole slew of like difficult conditions in your life when you don't use your voice, right? For it doesn't feel safe to use your voice. So
I have been one of those people myself, had a very hard time using my voice.
That's right.
And yes, body starts to speak to you. And most of the time when that starts, you don't know what to make of it.
Mm-hmm.
At least I didn't. I didn't know what to understand of it. And when you look into those avenues, even though, yes, it can be very heavy work, but I think it's also very liberating.
That's right.
It's very liberating that, hey, wait a second, I can regenerate my cells to be different from what they've been since I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
And I always used to think that you can only do that through medicine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't know you can go through another way. I thought the only way to regenerate or to make the body function differently is through medicine.
Yeah.
But this kind of work, and I will be honest, I've done her incubator. It was an avenue that I used myself to get rid of all of the hesitations. Again, what society taught you and what is actually correct is very different. So when that happens, your body's telling you, hey, you need to work on this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think even today, a lot of people choose to numb that instead of face it.
Yeah. It's like sometimes our bodies, there's certain circumstances we've been in where our body got scared.
Yes.
Or went into some sort of activation, right? But then it didn't really know how to resolve it, or we didn't know how to cry it out or whatever. So your whole body has been, creating a dynamic to hold these tears back. And that's a lot of energy, just holding back and not wanting to feel those sensations. But when you finally soften the guarding and things can start being felt, then that cycle can complete. And then your body cries and the tears move, and sometimes there's heat that comes out, but your biology out of this movement can resolve something and reorganize.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is very powerful.
That's very empowering. Wow. And while you do this work, what is a lot of the misconception people have around what you do? Because I'm sure you must have people come in thinking, hey, I thought something very different from what you're doing when I walked in.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that? What are like the top 2 or 3 questions or misconceptions that people have?
Well, I would say sometimes I feel maybe that people are projecting sort of ideas about what my sexual ideas are, or like that, they might think that, like, oh, because I've written a book about sexuality, that I'm like comfortable with, how can I say, not that I'm not comfortable talking about everything, but I'm like open to everything. No, it's like I have my own journey and my own thawing out and my own like sensitivities, and my nervous system is very sensitive, and and I have my own things, and it doesn't mean I'm interested in open relationships or this or that, right? Like, but I'm like, I was curious to go and explore it. But everyone has to make their own decisions and feels what good, feel into what feels good to them. But I have my own process with it too. But I think what's the most beautiful once we start the session is most people don't realize, wow, like I don't realize how much I was holding around that, or that they had no clue they were going to cry during the session. And then by the end of the sessions, they have, they've cried, and it's like something was opened up for them, and something felt like could go deeper, and something, and it's not always about sexuality. Sometimes it could be like feeling safe enough to just be yourself, and you could have lived your whole life being so scared of speaking because of whatever threat they were in. And then by suddenly realizing, wow, like I can be myself, and I'm totally claiming that, like there's a phenomenal relief that comes out of those sensations when it becomes embodied.
Yeah.
We can talk about things, but when it gets embodied, there's another level of like, I feel so much better,
And that helps your nervous system to calm down?
Well, everything is getting reorganized. And the nervous system is one of those little things that's always getting information and always adapting to what the information is. So we're having a conversation with the nervous system to be able to relax, or to let go of what it was holding on to, or, and be another state, go into another state that feels more supportive of the biology. The interesting thing is that, if you're in sympathetic activation all the time, that is hard for your system.
Okay.
Because it's like you're activated, right?
And
you're in survival or whatever.
So that my listeners understand, what is sympathetic?
Okay, so there's the autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
And there's two branches, the sympathetic.
Okay.
And the parasympathetic.
Okay.
And this sympathetic is when your nervous system is aroused, and maybe you have fear, fight, flight, freeze, all those things, depending on what level it is at.
Yeah.
And then the parasympathetic is the rest and digest.
Okay.
So rest and digest means you're available. Even in the polyvagal, they talk about the ventral, meaning you're much more available for social interaction. You're open.
Okay.
But when you're in activation, there's a nervousness, right? There's a coping, a survival feeling.
So there's kind of like a block.
Well, it just means you're in survival. Like your system is trying to figure out, like if someone dangerous arrives and like you get scared, your system's dealing with that, right?
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that the reason why I was talking about that is that like sexuality still does play in sympathetic, because it is a bit of an arousal, right? Your system's going into arousal.
Yeah.
And so that's why it can be a bit of an edgy thing for people, because there is an arousal. So someone who's had difficult situations, it can be like overwhelming for their system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there's this balance between this parasympathetic and the activation of the sympathetic, so that this experience feels supported and your organism feels supported and you feel like open to really enjoy it.
So you also mentioned right now of being in fight or flight mode. Is that something that you also work on to help someone to understand it or to move past it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's because this
again for my listeners.
Yeah.
Could you please tell what that means? What is fight or flight mode?
So fight. Okay, so let's say when you're in a situation where something happens and you're feeling scared, and then your reaction for survival is to fight.
Right.
So maybe you go and you want to fight with someone.
Yeah.
Maybe something arrives, you're scared,
yeah,
but your strategy to respond is flight, meaning you run away because you don't want to deal with it.
Okay.
And something as a simple level, let's say in a relationship with your husband and wife, and maybe one of the partners, like one gets very mad and the other one just wants to run away.
Yeah.
So these are like at a more simple level
Yeah.
in our everyday relationships. We can play these different roles. Our nervous systems can deal with situations in different ways.
Okay.
The freeze part is that you're scared or something's upsetting you, and then or intimidating you, and you go into freeze. You can't move. You can't take care of yourself. You can't speak.
Okay.
And so you're stuck.
Oh, that means you're freeze. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say if someone, when you were younger, touched you in a way that didn't feel good, but you didn't have the voice to say no and push them away,
Yeah.
you went into freeze. And that is an incomplete cycle because you froze there.
Yeah.
So those are things sometimes that eventually need to be revisited to allow that cycle to complete so you're not at some level of your being still in that freeze around certain triggers, right?
Right.
To become, because the whole idea is to come back into this expanded life.
Yes.
Where we're feeling fully, whole and fully enlivened, right?
So basically you're saying there's 3. There's fight, flight, freeze.
And there's also fawn.
There's also fawn. Okay, so there's 4 of them.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's other things too.
There's
but
more, yeah.
if you get into nuances and stuff, but fawn.
Yeah, just some basic ones that, that my listeners would want to know about.
Yeah.
Right?
So fawn would be someone makes you scared. Maybe someone maybe in a bar comes and is really flirting very strong and it's too much for you.
Yeah.
But you don't know how to deal with it. So you kind of kind of get all soft and gooey and kind of go with them, even if there's an alert system or maybe that's your strategy for survival. You're you have to get out of the situation, but you're kind of all nice and that nice part of it that you're just, that's your way of surviving, right?
Right. Right.
And
so these are all stages that when you're in survival.
Yeah. It's if you're activated.
Yes.
How do you deal with this activation?
Okay. And so you work with people, with your clients to help them either recognize what stage they're in.
Well,
or help them
more
to move.
It would be more like discovering our patterns, right?
Patterns,
so it's
okay.
oh, that happened to me. And okay, what happened? And okay, so where are the sensations in the body? And just helping them thaw out whatever the experience was so they can start connecting to it.
Right.
So this allows them then to not be stuck in that incomplete cycle. It just allows them to, maybe there's tears that are going to happen. Maybe there's some anger that needs to be expressed or, there's different things that just allow you to complete instead of being stuck somewhere where your body's in this perpetual state that's not super supportive for your organism, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. Okay. I'm just trying to process that a little bit, right? That was very, very strong what you just said.
Thank you for slowing down. If you need to slow down, that's great. This is all part of it, learning. One of the things about psychosomatic is also learning to, just being aware of sensations.
As you were saying that, it started to go really fast.
That's right.
Right?
So then
I needed to, okay, slow down.
Yeah, the titration part, slow down. We can just take a pause, breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we change the topic or we come back and just feel a little bit of more grounded again. And then we go back to them okay, what's there for you if it feels safe enough to go there? And it's it's almost I really see it almost blocks of ice, and you're just bringing love and sensation to these things, and then it slowly melts. Right. And then it just allows for something new to emerge.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So along with all this beautiful work that you do, I'm aware that you also do de-armoring and energetic de-armoring.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
So for me, it's still in the category of somatic work, but this was a specific approach to discovering that, the body has different ways, again, of protecting itself.
Yes.
So let's say you're scared someone, was coming your way, or maybe it was someone in your family, and your body just had a way of armoring yourself or protecting. Maybe you're always getting punished, or maybe you're always being told that you're ridiculous, or maybe you're always being criticized or mocked or made fun of or dismissed, or oh, don't listen to that person. Your body's going to try to deal with these things. And when it occurs, your body starts developing ways of protecting because the body's always trying to metabolize what is coming our way, but sometimes it's just too much.
Yeah.
And so we don't know how to deal with these situations. So our body then, let's say anger that is unexpressed, you might feel all this tension in your arms, right?
Yeah.
Or if you feel ashamed of something.
Yeah.
Maybe suddenly it's exposed in front of everyone. Maybe you're going to have a sinking feeling in your gut, right?
Yeah.
Or like you just found out that someone betrayed you. Your heart is going to feel so painful, right? Because it's like, I can't believe that person did that to me. So it's your body is responding as much as like we're all connected, our brain, our body. So everything is responding. And so what were we talking about?
De-armoring.
The de-armoring, right. So de-armoring is about, so there's different phases of de-armoring. So it's like this intelligence that, something can start showing up in a certain way. And then as time evolves, like there's refinements and things. But when de-armoring was the idea is that, your body actually, and it comes from this man called Wilhelm Reich, which started he was a student of Freud's.
Okay.
And he started like discovering, whoa, the body is also reacting. And then over time, it got into the somatic world. He kind of is one of the grandfathers of somatics in a way, but the body's reacting to things too. So de-armoring, the way I learned it was like there's a physical de-armoring and there's also energetic de-armoring.
Yes.
So let's say you got scared, your body stopped, your diaphragm contracted, you stop breathing deeply, or you're bracing for the attack and irregular with whatever family dynamics you experienced, and your body starts, and as neuroscience has developed, they're talking a lot today about these predictive patterns we're predicting that these things are going to keep on happening. So when we predict, our body go back or keep on sustaining these armors to protect ourselves because we think the same blow is going to come our way.
Right.
So de-armoring is about giving a new message to the body so that the body can reorganize again. So let's say you might hold the diaphragm for just hover over the diaphragm, or maybe you are touching the ribs. Maybe there's just different ways that the body's going to hold things. And so when you're de-armoring or following what the person's experiencing, the body's speaking. So you're kind of tapping into what that body, where the armoring is in that body.
Right.
And when I was given a demo of this the first time, it was very impressive because when people started de-armoring, their bodies started either going to tears, or energy started moving through their bodies, or they would have like some sort of convulsions, like, just moving through things. And I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy,
So just to simplify it again for my listeners, de-armoring is, so the exercise that we physically do is when you play with energy that's going on in their body. Is that what it is?
So there's the physical de-armoring and then there's the energetic de-armoring. So let's say, from our teacher that we learned it from, he started off with de-armoring, but then he very fast moved to more energetic because he realized that we don't actually need to press very hard or do things, very physical for the body to start responding.
Yes.
And so he went to the energetic part of it and just being tuned into what part of that body wants to, move, like, what needs releasing, what needs. It's a very somatic experience. It's hard to describe into words.
And that's why I was just asking in terms of the exercise.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of hard to describe in words. It's like when you have to go and experience it in order for you to understand what it is. But it's also knowing that you're going into a space where this is what you will be going through if you choose to go through it.
Yeah. So if I'll give you an example, often de-armoring is mostly done in a group setting, but it's also can be done one-on-one.
Okay.
But, there's something beautiful about doing it in a group because there's something that happens in a group field that sort of supports people releasing.
That's beautiful.
But so let's say someone wants to be the one receiving, they will lie down on a mat or something, and then the other person is there, and the idea is that they're just tuning in and also just waiting for the inspiration of what is called for that body.
Right.
There's observation, there's noticing how they're breathing and what they're dealing with. And as this intelligence has evolved, we've it's like going to new levels too, where it's you almost see that you almost can just be in full presence and beside someone's body, and their body will start reorganizing. So it started off physical. It went to almost more energetic with simple little energetic moves with your hand.
Yeah.
And now you could just almost be in the presence of the person, and the body itself will start reorganizing.
So it's basically designed to reorganize.
It's almost like allowing to thaw whatever is the armoring, but the body has an like the more you work with it, the more you discover there's this intelligence that it knows even more than you. And
I totally agree with you, because, all the AI must be coming in. I agree. But the kind of machinery we have in our bodies, nothing can replicate that. Our bodies are like our subconscious mind is always storing, good and bad. And I didn't even know how far it goes back in terms of what it's storing. I did not know that. And I was fascinated when I found out it's storing from the time you're just a little dot, right? Inside
and
the
even
womb.
epigenetics, right?
Yes.
Things that come from your parents that haven't been processed.
Right? So you're like, oh, wow. And then for you to actually be born in this world from that little, that's just so amazing.
It is.
Right? So I will say this to my listeners. I myself have gone through her de-armoring experience. And I must say it is something you walk into not knowing what you've signed up for sure. But for me personally, the experience was very, I felt like I let go of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, there are different avenues. Some people can be lying there crying. Some people can be screaming. Some people can be just quiet, holding on to their body. But those avenues, I find, lead you to a place where you just become more content with the person that you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because usually what we used to do back in the day is if we have some problem, just go to the doctor. Get some medicine.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I find that medications, as good as they are, there's just certain things in our bodies that don't need that. They actually need this kind of work.
Mm-hmm. It's almost, because it's almost like we're not getting to the actual dynamic in the body. We're just saying, okay, well, we'll numb this symptom.
Yes.
And then, it might create another symptom, but that's one way. But then there's, the body has maybe adapted that in ways that are not supportive of my health.
Yeah.
And so, if I release this, it starts reorganizing on its own, and it's like a wound. It knows how to heal itself.
So along your journey of however many years have you had more female clients or more male clients? Like, who's more open to actually understanding this space? Or has the numbers grown since you've started?
I find I'm more attuned to working with women, I think, as one-on-one clients, although I've had male clients as well.
Okay.
But I just feel more drawn because I feel like I understand that biology of that perspective and some of the dynamics that we've all grown up in.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that I don't have an awareness of, what, men are also experiencing too.
Right.
But when we have group sessions, I actually really do enjoy having men and women come together, because I think there's medicine in us witnessing each other and realizing that we're actually all one, trying to sort this out. It's not just one and the other one has to learn.
Yes.
Everyone is trying to readjust and reorganize. We're all carrying stuff from the past.
Yes.
And that's why I actually do enjoy having my husband, who's all interested in all the same things as me, be part of these group sessions with me too, because he brings in that masculine element and can hold that. And I think men, they do like having the masculine represented.
What I was basically getting at is I know women are open to this kind of work. They don't shut the doors as much, but are men opening up to acknowledging, hey, wait a second, I need to look into this. Wait a second, I need to acknowledge this, that this has been going on for me. Because, and this is a generalization, I'm not saying all, but a lot of men don't have that communication, that they're not able to communicate properly as to what they're feeling, right? Whereas women, we'll just say it with our girlfriends. And if we don't figure it out, we'll say it in a way where we do. but men hold back a
Yeah.
little more than we do. So that's why that question came up saying, are men starting to open up to this kind of work?
Well, that's why I think it's very interesting. I think my most interesting experiences with men is actually in group
Sessions.
because
Okay.
then there's something that one starts sharing something and then it's going to support all of them.
Yeah.
And I know that I have a lot of male friends who also are part of men's groups, that
Yeah.
are working on this. So I know that there's a lot of work being done out
Okay.
there for men
Okay.
and dealing with this, talking about real topics, trying to sort out how to be a good man, how to support their wives, or how to, show up and be fully in their masculine or whatever. There's they're really trying to sort it out too.
I mean, it's also society saying you men are not supposed to look vulnerable in front of anyone. Don't cry, don't show your weakness. That's just a way that society has kind of brought them up. But this kind of work is when you have to be the most vulnerable. You have to acknowledge that, hey, wait a second, this was my weak point.
Yeah.
Wait a second, this is something that I had to struggle with.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's why I feel that sometimes being a part of a group, then you kind of get the permission like, oh, wow, other people are experiencing similar things as me. And then, oh, I want to go deeper.
Yes.
Because I'm realizing this is helpful.
Yes.
What?
Yeah. And that's beautiful as long as, people recognize that or are open to that. You don't know. Maybe you will find something really beautiful on the other side and you'll be like, hey, the sun is shining again, right?
Yeah. But I've seen men in groups just be so courageous and really trying to sort things out, because they're sorting out their sexuality too.
And why do I say that? Because, and again, this is just to generalize, that a lot of men from my culture are still just numbing it. They're still just ignoring it, right? And that's coming from my surroundings or my, culture, whatever you can say. And so I'm like, okay, so there are people who are opening up to that.
Yeah.
It's just going to take more time to get more people to get there.
I feel like to actually get to a place where you want to do work on yourself, you've had to have sufficient pain.
Yes.
And sufficient impact on your life.
Yeah.
To think, I really want to do something different.
Yes.
So if somehow there's, things happening, but then the impact is not great enough for them, or they can avoid it or numb themselves, then they might not be ready to come and do the work. But if it creates alienation, maybe the family falls apart, or this is when things start, kicking in.
Yes, I totally agree. So how did you first discover the practice of de-armoring? And what made you realize that traditional talk therapy wasn't enough to release certain emotional blocks that you were carrying?
Mm-hmm.
So did you ever do traditional therapy?
Yes.
You did?
Yes. Well, I guess I was feeling like whatever as I was experiencing, I felt it it's really stuck in my body.
Okay.
So I was looking for something that...
So your body has been communicating with you from the beginning. Wow.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, in some ways, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, because it really showed up in sexuality, I found. Yes, I could be a very sensual person and very expressive, but there was a point where the intensity of things, also my body would start shutting down, or not enjoying it as much. So I was like, what's going on? I should be, everyone's enjoying this. Why am I not enjoying this,
And why do I ask this question is because, like I said, I was depressed at one time and I did go to the doctor. The doctor gave me some medication and I chose to throw it away within 2 to 3 days. And I said, no, I want to go through another path, right? And that's why I asked is, did you decide to do something different from the traditional therapy?
Yeah.
In order to say, hey, wait a second, I need to explore something else.
Well, what happened was actually through this writing of this book, a friend told me, oh, you should come to this workshop.
Right. I
really love this person. And he does a great workshop. And so it turned out to be my de-armoring teacher, which was Nathan Marcuzzi.
Okay.
And I saw him demo. I saw him how it works. And I was so impressed to see how this body would move with him barely touching the body.
And that was here in Vancouver?
That was here in Vancouver. And
okay.
So then I was very curious and I thought I'd like to have a one-on-one session. And I had this very explosive session with him where I was crying and puking, not puking, but snotting and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the ideal situation is being able to bring both awareness and a sensation part of the body, like bringing those two together. That's why I find psychosomatic, which psyche is like the mind and, feeling realm, with the soma, which is the body. I think as a processing it's the most effective, because you want it to be embodied. You want your body to know that it's safe.
Yeah.
You want to change dynamics. Like, to give you an example, I remember in one of my trainings where there's a man sitting at the front of the classroom, and then Nathan just came and moved his feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it kind of triggered a whole thing for this man, just having his feet changed, because he had this posture is how he protected himself, or how he lived life. And to have his body change, it kind of it just completely threw him off on a loop, right? So the body is communicating to yourself too, giving you feedback all the time. And there's also emotions, there's thoughts. And thoughts can also impact the body. Like when I'm in sessions with people doing psychosomatic, and I tell them, okay, imagine, focus on, this thing that upsets you. Their whole body's going to get all like, things are going to start happening. If I say focus on the ground and how it's supportive suddenly, or something really beautiful happened to them, then their body starts opening. It's always responding.
Yes.
To like our mind as well. So we have to also acknowledge how powerful our mind is.
Yes. Yeah. That part I do agree with. It is really powerful. Even the conversations that go on when we're just thinking, they're very powerful.
Yeah.
Right? And when we're young, we don't realize exactly how strong that energy is.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So how would de-armoring help someone if they practice it?
Mm-hmm.
So we often think of armor as being a hardened exterior, right? But where does it physically and energetically manifest in our bodies? Like it could be our jaw, our chest, or our pelvis.
That's right, yeah.
Right, and everybody's different. So how would this practice help that person?
Well, let's say, just to like talk with the body a little bit.
Yeah.
Like there's all these air chambers in the body, so the diaphragm is this regulator in your body. So let's say you're happy-go-lucky, everything's good, you're breathing deeply. Suddenly you got scared and you stopped breathing deeply. Mm-hmm. So the pressure, let's say there's a motion of fear, or someone did something really mean to you and it shocked you,
Yeah.
Well, your body, if it's too hard for you to feel, it's going to contract in all kinds of different ways, and the pressure won't be able to be distributed in the body properly. So there's places where we kind of shut down to stop the sensations of things. So, for instance, like if I'm in a session with someone and I say, what does that feel like in your body? They'll always take a deep breath because it helps them to go into their body and feel.
Yeah.
But if they're not, if they don't, like if you look at the other way, when you don't breathe, you're also not feeling the sensations in your body or feeling the emotions in your body. Yes. So these are ways of stopping the emotions. So even the jaw, like if there's something you didn't say, like it's a way of holding. Yeah. The other day I was working with a woman that probably has held grief and sorrow her whole life, and she's pretty advanced in age. And we got to a place where she started crying, and you could see that it was so not familiar for her to cry that she was even holding her chin, and her chin was wavering, but she was crying, but a silent cry, because everything else was holding it in, because that's what she learned to do, she didn't feel comfortable just to let it out. So that's the whole thing, is like learning to see, like it could be the jaw, it could be maybe anger goes into your shoulders, you're holding the anger. Maybe you're ashamed, and so you collapse in and you want to protect yourself. You don't want to reveal yourself, or you're feeling too sensitive, so you kind of collapse in. So it's almost like bringing awareness to these different parts of the body that can start having a new experience, right? A new awareness of what we're holding.
Yeah.
And I find that the de-armoring is great But I feel that the psychosomatic work really brings in also just even more awareness. So then as the sensations arise, then you can also be with them.
Okay.
So, because you could go into a session and just be like crying and whatever and things move, but it can also stay a little bit in this just arousal state of like releasing, but you're
Okay.
not sure, did I fully like let that go?
Yes. Yes.
So I like this combination of feeling the sensations, being with it, having an awareness with it, as opposed to just checking out, So, and that's where I feel like there's a refinement that's happening, where I feel like that's the bridge between the psyche and the psychology and the soma, and having this work together.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that we're not working on the armoring.
Yes.
Because the armoring is the issue, right?
Yeah.
So it's like getting into, like there's a sensation in your jaw. So let's go into that sensation. And it's almost like teaching your body by being with it, that it can start letting go. But sometimes if we're just moving energy, like sometimes I don't know if the body's fully, maybe it's having a release, but I don't know if it's actually relearning a new way.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of like one of my explorations, is how to bring it to this other level of like sustainable transformation.
That's beautiful. So they're kind of like, all these things are kind of like coinciding with each other.
They
for
come together.
For you to get the full.
Well, it's almost like there's an intelligence in the body. The body's telling you all kinds of things. There's also like your awareness of it. And then even beyond that, there's that whole thing of being a witness to someone. And just by being a witness, that can be healing for someone.
Yes.
Like being seen. And it was funny because I was actually in a session, receiving myself, because we're always growing and everything. And at the beginning, when I started working with this one woman, I had trouble even looking at her in the eyes. Like there was something that it took me a while to feel safe to just connect with her. And it's, you would never know that about me, right?
Yes.
But I was feeling that way, and I had to overcome that by slowly just feeling more and more at ease with her. But it's, your body's constantly talking.
Talking. Yes, definitely. It has an energy source of its own.
Yeah.
So how does letting go of the armor, the energetic armor, change how we show up in our relationships, how we communicate our boundaries?
That's right.
And how we connect with others? How does that help us after we've gone through this process?
So let's say you have a habit of, like, your body decided to learn this one way of dealing with someone that doesn't listen to you.
Yes.
And it's like you feel angry or feel upset or you feel like disconnected and you want to just walk away, or like someone interrupting you all the time, and there's a feeling of like not being seen, let's say. Well, your body's going to have little habits that it's going to do. Like maybe there's a discouragement. Maybe there's a stopping of breathing. Maybe, there's different things that start happening in the body, right? So by bringing attention to what's happening, you can start learning to feel more at ease with that, with those emotions. Like for instance, I find it very powerful. Let's say we come into awareness of that you feel angry about something. And sometimes just stopping and being with that. Is it okay for just to feel that? Or is it okay just to feel that sorrow, and stopping and feeling that? It's almost like your system is not just going into this rote automatic way of reacting.
Yeah.
It's like learning, it's actually safe enough for me to feel this.
Oh.
So you don't need to go into all your habits of armoring or like not breathing or like putting pressure internally on yourself to like survive whatever the situation is. Maybe, you can, for instance, and you asked me, how does it change your relationships? Well, I had a client recently who she was really dealing with feeling not loved by her parents and not given enough attention by her parents. She's an adult woman.
Okay.
But she, like in our session, we, there's all these things going on. At one point, like the body just wanted to express it.
Yeah.
And then she went on this trip to see her family. And then she told me it didn't come out beautifully, but it came out.
Yeah.
And she was able to express what she needed to express.
Right.
And so sometimes just being in sensation, coming into realization, oh, I'm like holding all this tension in my jaw, being with it. What do you want to express? What is it that you're not saying?
Yeah.
And then by being with it, then you're like, you get more comfortable with it. So when it's almost like a thawing out. And so when you're actually in that situation, then it just somehow you have access to it.
Yeah.
And it comes in, it kicks in. So it is reorganizing you when you start going to places where you have that predictive patterning, a way of being that's always the same, and you're starting challenging it and giving it a new avenue, a new way of, like instead of being scared of that dog that's barking, like, like slowly you start like petting it and realizing, the dog's not that scary. I can be with this dog. It's the same thing.
It sounds so similar to doing spiritual work. It's like understanding what the patterns are, letting them go, having an empty space, and then filling it again with what works better for you. Right? That sounds so similar to it, but in a different energy portal.
Yeah.
But that's so beautiful.
Well, it's all connected, right?
They're all connected.
They're all connected.
Yeah.
So that's really, it's like
beautiful.
A principle of life, really.
So now coming back to, you've got the co-creative soma, you've got the de-armoring, and then you took another leap and you went for training for psychosomatic and field work.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
So again, for me, I feel like there's all this continuum of like, actually there's always an intelligence that is very connected, but it's almost like refining it and becoming more and more aware of things that are even greater than you. So the field work has been very amazing because you discover that instead of needing to energetically move things or to physically move things, actually through consciousness now.
I'm going to slow you down a little bit.
Yeah.
So for my listeners, I just want to kind of understand, what is psychosomatic work? What does that mean for them?
So psycho is mind and, feeling.
Okay.
Psycho, like the psyche.
Yeah.
And then soma is the body. So it's the combination of the psychosomatic, so the mind-body connection.
Coming together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now that, in the world, it shows up in things like, somatic experiencing or different things of that have been developed. There's been different modalities that bring and combine these things together.
So soma is the physical.
Soma is the Greek word for the body.
The body. Okay. Yeah. All right.
So, and then jumping ahead, like I was, this, when you see de-armoring, you see the body move in specific ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the releasing of things and emotions appearing. And I've even had experiences where I had hysterical laughter come out and then almost feel like I was connecting to the comedy or the comedy of life, like just like I was getting access to, wow, we're all playing a part. Yeah. So you have these moments, like you can have heightened states of like awareness, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Now with the field work, it's on the same continuum, but it's because I would see all these, videos too, where I see people suddenly, just by someone touching them, falling on the ground or like having like shaking their nervous system readjusting or their biology reorganizing. So I was very curious, what is this?
Yeah.
And so the access point's a little different. It's really through a bond that you create with the person. And through this bond, helping them experience the impersonal state, which is going from the personal is like your ego, you're like a super aware, I'm here, present now. And the impersonal is almost like going into a state where you're aware of like the connection.
Yeah.
And it's this other state of being.
Yeah.
So in that state of being, you're actually more open to heal and to reorganize.
Okay.
So it's by going through, helping the state change, through consciousness, it's allowing the biology to reorganize. So it's almost like another level of like, especially, I love using this especially for people who have been in such long-term difficult situations where they have chronic diseases now or illnesses or like recurring patterns that are so deep. They've tried everything and they can't get rid of it. Then it's like, I like doing the field work because it's really about holding that place into the impersonal, but it's not you doing the work. You're just helping them be in that state of openness. So then their biology can start reorganizing to this ultimate, like a even greater intelligence than you could have.
Right.
So for me, it's all in the same continuum, but it's almost just a refinement of awareness.
That's beautiful.
Because even in the psychosomatic work, I would say you feel sometimes this magic start happening in the session. And you're like, whoa, like this, how did this start happening? Or things happen just before sessions happened. And they come and they I don't know why this happened, but this is what, and you get to and you get to deepen something that you would have never accessed if it didn't happen. Right. So you start sensing, wow, there's this really much greater intelligence working in this co-creative way. That's why I always love this co-creative aspect, because we're working with something much greater, of greater intelligence.
So when you found out about this work, were you going through something personally, or were you finding another avenue for your clients where you felt like, hey, wait a second, I can't understand how to move past this? Was going for this training a personal?
Well, it's interesting because as you develop your different skills, like the thing that happens, each thing can have its shadow, right?
Yes.
So when you're doing de-armoring, and you'll see this on the internet now, there's so many people doing different things, moving energy, and people having reactions, and it can almost become a very egoic thing.
Right.
Like this, like it feels good if you get the body moving.
Yeah.
But really, like the biology is way more refined than that. Sometimes it doesn't even show, but there's things reorganizing. So this is almost like another level of trusting and holding, so that something even more attuned can emerge. And it's like it's this other level of like consciousness. So I'm happy to have had all of those experiences because I feel they all build on each other.
Okay.
So whenever I'm working with someone, I have the information from everything, and then we're just working with that, right? However it wants to unfold itself.
So would you bring it a program where you do all these levels for a person to get to their optimal space, or are they all separate in terms of how you're dealing with your client? Or do you plan to develop a program where you have this as the first level and then this as the second level and then this, depending on how their own personal journey is and how traumatized or...
Yeah. Well, I think like the experience of, let's say, the de-armoring can always come in and play with the field work, but it's almost like you're accepting that the field is even more the authority.
Okay.
So it's almost like another level of humility. So it's like in terms of trainings and or like my optimal combination right now, I find in terms of what really supports people, is doing a part of my one-on-one sessions as psychosomatic.
Yeah.
So it helps them tune in to whatever patterns they have, whatever's emerging, some of the chronic things they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And then once we kind of touch on things and things have started to become aware, then we go into the field part, and it's almost like there's a trust that the information and this intelligence is working at another level. So I find that is a really great combination. In terms of group space, I'm still like exploring like what's the right formula with people.
And that's why I asked, would you later on, I don't think you have that right now, but would you build levels on saying, hey, wait a second, I'm going to have a one-on-one conversation with this person to figure out what kind of help they need, and then say, hey, this is the 3 but I think this is where you fit the best.
Yeah.
And this is what we would focus on.
Well, it's almost like in the de-armoring, especially the physical, it's almost like there can be a technique. It's like touch here, and whatever.
Yeah.
And then in the energetic, it was like a more of a tuning in to like explore and follow the lead. And then the field is almost like stepping back even more and trusting, but coming from a connection piece. Like it's a bonding. So there's a trust and then a surrender of like allowing something greater. So it's almost like when we were doing the de-armoring, we weren't quite sure if, like, I feel like it's, in my life, it's helped me, but I wasn't also completely sure, okay, am I really making progress or am I just reactivating things?
Yeah.
So I wasn't I was tentative with that. So that actually slowed us down a little bit with that. And that's why we went to get the psychosomatic to have also this more of a trauma-informed approach. And not that it, wasn't, like, not that there wasn't an intention for that awareness, but it's almost like just making it more clear.
Yeah.
And then with the field work, even being more clear with how do we position our ego in this?
Yeah.
Because it could feel like, oh, well, if I'm getting a big, like it's very interesting because and this is not at all his ego, but Sean did that. When we did one of our events in Squamish, and he was very attuned, and this woman really had this wave go through her body, and it really looked like an orgasm. And so we put those on my YouTube channel.
Yeah,
and it went viral.
Wow.
It went, so there's, I think, 650,000 views,
Wow, okay.
And people were so fascinated with it because it's like, oh, it looks like someone having an orgasm, right?
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that was attracted to that too because there's the orgasm. It's like, oh, maybe it allows the body to fully open, right? So I find it interesting. And we both feel that it's almost like we want to not like instigate something. We want the body to have this presence where this intelligence of the body then emerges. It's not like, oh, I want to have an impact. Like I'm seeing actually online a lot of things that are getting very, very popular, but there's like really intense things that they're doing to other people's bodies. And I'm just like, we're kind of more in this line of work where we're kind of realizing like you can do so much more by actually stepping back and letting. It's not you that needs to do it. There's something greater that is doing it. And it's hard to talk about it here, but let's say you're in a session and you start giving people an experience of the field and the field starts pushing you or starts moving you. And it's like you realize there's something much greath here.
Yes, of course.
At play. And so it's kind of like tapping into that greater intelligence. And so it's more like an ethical kind of evolution where I feel more ethically like positioned where I want to be aligned with not triggering anything that is not feeling correct.
Right.
But letting but also following what the field tells you to do. So if there's something that feels the right thing, then this is really where you're initiating from. Are you just doing a technique, pushing these buttons, and then whatever happens? Maybe that body's not ready for that. Yeah. Like I saw some very deep things where they push in the jaw and like releasing these big things. And I myself had sessions where people worked on my deep fascia and my jaw. Doesn't mean they can release it. It can be extremely painful, but it might come back because it's really what it is. It's a pattern.
It's a memory it's there. It might come back. Yeah.
So if you're still living from that pattern, that predictive pattern that you can't speak, you can maybe have a temporary release. But if you haven't gone into the deeper or at least transform that dynamic, it's going to keep on coming back. So that's where I want to not do things just from this place of like, oh, like this looks really good and it's going to really impact and be, like impressive, but make sure that I'm really in tune with the intelligence that wants to come through.
Yeah.
And that's where you're really this co-creator. So it's beautiful. So it's almost like just getting more refined and like not being that push person but creating more and more that container where this is possible for a deep transformation. whatever that
And you
body
letting
needs
that
in that moment.
Yeah, and you letting that body do it instead of you taking that intentionally saying, let's
Yes.
push this. You're like, no, let the body speak.
That's
okay,
right.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just kind of like, I mean, even for us, like a
That
process
was
of just getting sensitive to what dynamics are playing out and just getting more refined. Even if all this awareness around de-armoring is at the base of all of this, right? It's still at the base of, oh, like our bodies are holding these things, right?
Yeah, right.
And
right.
it's how the body organizes around how you're feeling, right? How you're protecting yourself against certain things or.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. Wow, the body is beautiful. Wow, okay. And so coming towards the end of our show today, I'd like to ask you, what is the one thing that you're working on right now that has you looking forward to how it turns out?
Well, I've been intensely going into making another book.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so that's very exciting to me. And like,
is that on the similar lines of the first book?
It is, and it's bringing in all this intelligence.
Okay.
And yet also allowing to go deeper into certain things. Like, for instance, one of the questions I'm really asking is, why is it so difficult for us to, historically even, to feel emotions, you know? I mean, yes, we can talk about it's a nervous system thing, but why is some people capable of feeling their emotions and some people, you know, it's too much for them?
Yeah.
Why do people numb? So looking at patterns in culture and history.
Right.
But it's to really look at how do we process and understanding the whole intelligence of the body kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And I think just keep on being of service and serving people in the capacity of helping. I love being of service for people who really have certain chronic conditions and then getting deeper and like, you know, just getting deeper into it so that people can start seeing what is playing out for them. So just empowering them. Yeah.
Wow, you do some amazing work.
Sorry.
No worries. I just want to give you a really big thank you for being here today. I know I've learned a lot from you today. And thank you for also explaining certain things. I know sometimes we go into a conversation and we kind of go further ahead than what our listeners understand.
No, I love it that you did that because, you know, you can get so into shop talk.
Exactly.
And
right?
That's the whole thing. Like there's a whole world out there. Like, you know, we can see everything in our feeds can be everyone's saying the same thing and you feel like everyone's on the same page. But that's just a little echo chamber.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that the whole world has caught up to this conversation. So It's almost like allowing people to come in. So thank you for helping me see where it could slow down.